Hey everybody, this is Larry. This is day 16 of the Leetcode Day Challenge. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, join me on Discord. Let me know what you think about this content or this problem. Man, I am uh I've said this like about a few thousand times now, or at least 1,000 times, I guess, because my streak is 1,000 days. And I still don't know what I'm saying, you know? Which tells you sometimes practice makes perfect, but sometimes practice makes you a little bit dumb. Anyway, no, the reason why is because today I wanted to talk a little bit about there are a couple of things man, I feel like these videos have kind of been a little over the place. I mean, they're still relating to lead code and programming and stuff like that. So let me know in the comments, whether you find it interesting. This is very topical, of course. It is February 15 on 2024. I don't remember the year, but anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of debate now on my Discord. Definitely come check that out about just about all these things where basically the idea here is on a lead code contest. They've been adding this thing. I mean, I guess it's been a couple of years now, but recently they've been kind of upping it a lot. Where there's this idea of system testing, which is basically after you submit your problem or you submit your solution for a problem for the contest, and then it kind of and if you haven't been following up on this saga, I've been kind of talking about it in the beginning of a couple of these videos. So if you're joining in here new, my apologies. You can skip a little bit ahead. It's my fault. But yeah, there's these failed system tests that kind of comes up like a few days afterwards, and it's because I don't know. And I don't know. My personal opinion is that it's kind of just lazy. It's a little bit. I mean, look. Once in a while, it's gonna happen. People make mistakes. Problem setters are human, and you can lower the probability of a mistake, but mistakes will happen, right? Of course, but and as a senior engineer, as a staff engineer, this is something that comes up in a team as well, right? Like when if someone junior on your team is able to take down the service or system or create a level 5 or level 1 outage, depending on, I don't know, some companies have level 1 is the highest, some companies have level 5, I don't know, one of those, what the highest priority, right? When that happens, it is not the junior's fault. It is probably the senior's fault and the staff engineer's fault, or at least the team lead's fault for having a system in a way such that could happen. Of course, sometimes that just happens because the team lead acknowledges that there are trade-offs between different it's just a trade-off between this idea of like robustness and security and all these things. Security is maybe not good, but I just mean like reliability. You take a trade-off in those things, knowing that for trade-offs in others, right? For example, just getting your product out, maybe like you're trying to get it out by Christmas so that like certain things can happen by Christmas or something like this, right? Or like getting things out by Super Bowl so that you can have a Super Bowl ad or something, I don't know, right? And of course in those cases it's a very deliberate choice to trade one thing for another, right? I mean, that said, not everyone makes those choices deliberately, of course, and that's the ideal case, is that everyone kind of like make all these value judgment and figure out what is the best thing to do for the product, for the company, for etc., right? So definitely when the system fails, you don't blame the person who accidentally pressed the wrong button or whatever. You blame the system. You blame the tech lead who is basically the head of the subsystem that you have, right? Whether that is your fun L6 or your L7, I don't know, right? Depending your staff, your senior staff, depending on your company, depending on what you're working on, depending on the domain, depending on all these things. But yeah, right. Yeah, when I thought about that is that I think I mean that was just like a general system thing, and so as a mentor to engineers in the past, I actually have this. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but a variation of this speech, basically telling my junior engineers like, hey, look, this is how it is. Everything that goes down or whatever stops with me, it's my fault. If you're able to break it, right? And of course, I mean, you shouldn't try to break it. Obviously, we're all assuming good intents and all these things of like, everyone's trying relatively their hardest, trying their best, and being in a coachable place so that we're in a place to learn. We're all learning. Even me, as at that time senior or staff or whatever it is, depending on the situation, right? Like we're all learning. It's okay as long as we're all growing, and it's okay as long as we don't make the same mistakes too many times. I want to say not even twice, really, but sometimes things happen, and especially when you're dealing with big system, there's just a lot of interaction, and the thing about building a robust system versus coding as we have here is not just that you build the system in a way such that it is hard, or I mean obviously you try, but that's not a system thing, right? That's just a coding thing. You have to build in with these errors, right? um and it's about you know having either process on a technology level, or like something that's automated level, or something on a manual process level, like maybe as a checklist of to kind of being able to recover from the failure state, right? Whether it is the system being down, or maybe you plan for it so that it the system degrades, but in a way that still works. And these are the kind of things that people think about, and things that are you know I think maybe I'll split this up to a different video at some point, to be honest. So if you're watching this now, thank you, and I hope you appreciate just the kind of insight that I'm having now. If not, then fast forward as well. I don't know. It is it's fine. But the idea there, right, is that you try to make the best of, you try to figure out what is the most important to you, your system and stuff like that, and try to balance all these concerns in a way that it self resolves, right? And in terms of processes, this is what makes a staff engineer a staff engineer. I know that there's a lot of title inflation and all these things going on. I feel like what and I've been in the industry for 2 decades, which is kind of makes me feel old saying it, but like what people would call a staff engineer now is probably a senior engineer, like I don't know, 10 years ago, right? Give or take. I don't know. To me, 10 years ago is like 1990, so I have to like think about the math. Man, this is what happens when you get old, kids. Don't get old. But no, but seriously though, but these are the things that when and what makes a senior engineer and staff engineer is that, like, I think and don't get me wrong, to be honest, when I was young and when I was that age and when I was a junior, I was, I thought I was a hot shot, say, without cursing. And I thought I was, I was arrogant. I thought I knew everything. I thought I'm really smart. I could do anything that I could do. But, and it's true that you probably, as a junior, if you're a very good junior, and you learn the right things, I mean, obviously you still have to do some learning and progression. You learn the right things, you probably say, I don't know, 90% as good as you can be as when you become senior, right? Or staff or whatever it is now. I don't know. When you get more senior, not just the senior position, I suppose, right? And the difference, and I mean, there are also obviously other dimensions. I'm just talking about the tech. There are different, kind of job descriptions to a senior and a staff, meaning, there are some other responsibilities that you're, like, some stuff is like project management, depends on company by company, and some stuff about mentorship, making people around you better, the force multiplier, or skill multiplier, as you kind of read in somewhere. I'm kind of hand waving a little bit because I don't want to make this a 2-hour video. And if you want to listen to that 2-hour video, maybe one day, let me know in the comments, and maybe one day I'll post something up. But yeah, 90. You'll probably be in terms of a programmer, in terms of a coder, you're probably 90% as good as a senior engineer, right? In theory, like, but maybe it's a little bit of a scam. But your title is not a programmer. Your title, you want your title to be software engineer, and what that means is, okay, engineer. Maybe that doesn't mean anything, but what it actually means though is that you're hired to cynically one or two things, two ways to put it. Maybe one is to solve problems for the company, or maybe even more directly, make money for the company, right? Um, and yeah, and programming is one of the tools that you can, and the reason why you get paid a lot as an engineer is that coding is one of those quote unquote unique-ish skills that you are bringing to the job. However, um, that is a skill. It is in your tool set, but it is not the only thing in your tool set, and it is not the only thing that you're trying to do for the company, right? Um, and what I would say is that you know in the it is in those 10%, in those 1% of the times that differentiates how you handle these situations, right? Meaning that people get paid that multiplier because of that 1% of the time, because they know what to do when, I guess you can say, when everything breaks loose, say, or when a lot of things hit the fans, say, right? I don't know why I went on a rant like this. This is a 10-minute rant, but anyway, going back to why I talked about this is that my point is that these contests have been kind of a little bit silly, contentious lately on Leetcode, and I wouldn't necessarily blame it on the testers. I think some people blame it on testers in the sense that like they should have found edge cases, and maybe they should be, but that you don't blame on them. Maybe not even a problem setter though. I have some questions about the part one, part two thing, as we talked about a couple of days. Not a fan. If your part one is a for loop, you can write other problems that are for loops. It's not impossible. I believe you. I believe in you. But I think that it's just now. But I think like having these lazy system testing kind of puts the incentive in the wrong place, in that like, hey, we can be lazy. I think the biggest thing that hits is that, well, two things. One is that I think Leetcode has to figure out who they want to be and what they want to be, especially in terms of the contest scope. And with that North Star, they can figure out how do we solve things when they come up, right? Like, is it a contest platform or is it an interview platform that where the contest kind of emanates as much as it can, roughly, in an interview? I mean, obviously nothing's imperfect. Problems get harder because you want to be over prepared than under prepared. I don't know. There are some arguments there, but like and I think one thing that I loved about Leetcode contest, to be honest, and I'm just saying this as a nerd, is that I could be done when I'm done. Like, I don't have, like, there was a time, like, it's been a few years now, I suppose. There was a time when you just submit it, you get accepted, you're like, okay, I'm done, right? Like, I don't want to spend the next hour like not trusting the Leetcode test cases and thinking that maybe there's some weird thing, and then come to find that I'm wrong, right? And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Like, I feel like there is definitely an influx of people doing the contest, and they bring from competitive programming, and they bring into these contests their background of competitive programming contests and other things, and their ideas of what they should be, which is like every other contest out there. Look, there's you look at C-list, right? There's like, I don't know. I don't remember what it is, but like there's like 20, 30 competitions a week. Why are we doing Leetcode if it's exactly the same as all the other ones? And now, right? Like, I don't know. It would be very weird if like, I don't know. I think that's my rant for now. I think that my point is just that I don't know. System testing is never a happy surprise, and now they kind of, especially the past week, they have been adding system testing for Robin Corp, And Robin Carp is a randomized algorithm which I loved a lot. It is one of my first string algorithms that I learned when I was an undergrad, and I guarantee you that well, maybe I wouldn't say guarantee, but I would say that if you use Robin Carp in an interview, um, you will get it. Your interviewer will be impressed. You will do well on the problem. Maybe they'll ask you something about false positives, and you just give like a one line, like, "Hey, this is what happened to false positive." Like there is some chance, but there are things you can do to improve it with double hashing, add randomization, etc. Right? Um, but the current way that it is projecting, and the way that it is set up, it is just not. It just means basically no Robin Cup, or at least I mean, it's kind of already a little bit sad, to be honest. Because for me, one thing that I was a purist about with respect to Leetcode contest in the last couple, for as long as I could, is that I was really against copy and pasting, like template code, like Union Fine or whatever, or segment tree, I guess, is the other big one. Like I was way against. I like to do everything off my head, off my brain. Some may say that it affects my rating negatively, and it's a little bit of a trickery and whatever. And yeah, it's fine. Like other people do it, I don't have to do it, right? But nowadays, I feel like and and this goes back to where I think like Leetcode's done is not quite sure what it wants to be, right? Because no one on an interview will allow you to paste in a segment tree code, because if they expect you to do that, they just wouldn't ask you a segment tree problem, right? Yeah, I mean, okay, look, there are always bad interviewers, so maybe I wouldn't say always, but with any reasonable interviewers, where they're actually trying to do something, or trying to learn something about the candidates, that's what they should do, right? Like, and even the last Q4 on the last contest, it was just basically 90%. Like, okay, there's a Q observation, which is fun, and then the rest is just copy in a code that everyone else has done. And now you make it even more tricky for some people to do. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of things that are libraryable. I feel like that is just lazy on the problem setter side, right? Because I think, like, maybe one time, two time, like, okay, look, we're all learning, it's fine. But at a certain point, no one is surprised that half the people that finish on top has a library code copy paste in, right? And then at some point, like, what are you testing here? What are you trying to do here? What I mean, having the library ready, and some of the comments I get in my videos are like, hey, are we expect to know this on interview? And I always have to keep saying no, not really, but anyway, all right. Sorry, friends, this has been a 20-minute rant. I'll actually start the problem today. Hope everyone's having a good day in the Ides of February 15, on this Thursday. Man, it is very cold here in New York, and I'm having some sniffles for whatever reason. Oh man, my blood sugar is very high. And oh yeah, I've been a random quick update aside from that is that I still have my blood glucose monitor, and it keeps on pinging me every time it goes a little high. And every time I actually don't do it that much during Leetcode problems, but during the Leetcode contest, it actually spiked a lot. So it's kind of interesting to see, because I think it is just like the body's response to quote unquote stress, or like the fight or flight response. So it releases, and what happens is that your liver releases these glycogen into the bloodstream, so that your muscles can, in a way, take the glycogen and put it in, so that you can kind of use your ATPs as fast as possible. Get energy into your muscles as soon as possible is what I'm trying to say. Except for that, I'm sitting here and I'm just doing this to get my muscles moving, I suppose. But yeah. Anyway, all right. Now let's get started on today's problem. 1481, least number of unique integers after k removals. Okay. Given an array of integers r and integer k, find the least number of unique integers after removing exactly k elements. Okay, I mean, right off the bat, it seems greedy, right? Because basically, removing k elements, so Well, there are a couple of things that you can say. I mean, I say greedy, but there are a couple of things that goes with greedy immediately, right? The first one is that, well, I guess if k is more than 1, you want to remove. So basically, you want to remove all of them being the same number, or as few numbers of elements as. Well, the most element. How do I say this? Basically, you want to remove all copies of one number whenever possible, right? Because otherwise it doesn't change the answer. For example, let's just take even here. If you remove 5, you still have a 5, so it still has 2 unique numbers, right? So you definitely want to remove anything that you can remove to all the numbers of. For example, if k is equal to 2, then in this case you can remove both 5s or 1 4. It doesn't matter. You only have one number left. And yeah, and then after that, so that's the first observation, and that observation allows you to group them together into a frequency table, say, right? And then after that, it just becomes, well, if you have 2 choices in a greedy kind of way, would you remove the number? If you have k moves, would you remove the number that appears more often or less often? Well, less often, so that you have more k for later, right? So in that sense, both you have 2 points of greedy, and I think that's good enough to get started. And in terms of implementation, you could do it in a couple of ways, but yeah, oops. Let's get started. I'll put them in a frequency table. Right, so now f contains the value and the values, the values in array, and then the count of them, the frequency of them. And of course, you actually don't need the number itself. Like here, we can actually store this as 2 and 1. We don't care about if it's 5 or 4. So then we can do something like f.values, and then we could sort based on it. And now we move the min first, right? So maybe we can have removed is equal to 0 for v in this number, right? If k is greater than 3, then we subtract v, and then we move goes to 1, and then so the number that are left is just gonna be f, the length of f minus removed, right? I mean, and you can obviously count this in a little bit differently, but that's what I would say. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is n log n. Can I do better? I don't know that you could do better. Well, I mean, the only way that it could be better is linear time. And I guess you can say something about, yeah, I guess you can say something about like linear, linear sorting or something like this, because they're only, I don't know. But either way, I'm just going to go with n log n time, O of n space, because the numbers can be all over the place. And that's all I have for this one. A very quick one, surrounded by a 20-minute rant. But yeah. Yeah, I did basically the same way, but I did it in a funky way last time. Huh. Really weird. But that was like also 4 years ago now. And I think 4 years ago, I've learned a few things in 4 years. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. Let me know what you think. Stay good, stay healthy to good mental health. I'll see y'all later and take care. Bye bye.